So, depending on how much you've read of my Substack, I publish an article or an essay about once a week on Mondays. And at the beginning of the year, I pick a theme song, something that is going to kind of set the tone for me in my head, give me a good headspace for going into the year. And at the beginning of this school year, I picked a Billy Joel song called "Turn the Lights Back On." And it wasn't have anything to do with teaching, but when I heard it, when he came out with the song, the story of Billy Joel coming out with the song after 40 years of not making any new music is a great story by itself. Um, I really resonated with the lyrics of the song. I wanted it to be like this, fall in love with teaching again. So I went into the mindset of, you know what, it's been a while. I've been a little cynical of late. I've had some rough school years the last couple years. I'm going to fall in love with teaching again. I'm going to fall in love with school again. So that was my mindset going in. So how did I do? Well, as expected, there were some bumps in the road, lots of obstacles. It's never smooth sailing. If you're a teacher, just, watching, as you know, it's never smooth sailing. But I do feel like I had a more positive mindset this year than in years past. And I do think it has to do with just setting that intention at the beginning of the year. And so my intention was really just try and make learning as joyful as possible for both me and my students. I had 28 students this year. I had 18 boys and 9 girls. So I joked around that it was more of like a frat house than a classroom because I had so many boys cramped in that small mobile classroom that I have. Um, but I do think overall we had a pretty joyful school year. I think I just went in with a better headspace, um, and I think it made some of the harder things less sucky. For lack of a better word. So, and I'll talk about some of those. But one of the first things I did at the beginning of the school year was I wanted to get back to paper and pencil. I've noticed that my students' their attentional presence has been waning really bad as of late. And so I was like, you know what? Even though my students get a laptop on day one of school, I want to try and get back to some paper pencil activities. So I dusted off the whole dialectic notebook. Well, I've always done annotations and reading and highlighting and annotating on the text, but I started doing more digital annotations just to try and keep up with the times, with that guise of getting kids ready for the school year. I mean, for the real world. And I really pulled back on that and did a lot of glue sticks and cutting out prompts and writing things in and doing a table of contents and tabs. Um, and it overall was a great success. It was a bit stressful on me because um, I like to keep things nice, and when I have a digital environment like my learning management system on my computer, I can keep things organized. And if you're a teacher, if you let kids start organizing stuff, their desks are crazy. So my type A, my OCD personality kind of wanted to control that. However, there were a few tricks that I had that kind of kept things nice throughout the whole school year. So one thing that I did that I'm really going to continue to do is because my kids don't have desks, I've got tables and they've got bins, it's very easy for notebooks to just go missing or to get stomped on or pages to get ripped out. So I spend a good chunk of time at the beginning of the year setting up everybody's notebooks with them. And then I collected them and kept them on a bookshelf, and then I passed them out as needed. So this was great. It worked out really, really well for book clubs, for reading short stories. I would pass them out, we'd use them, and then I would collect them. And I kind of did that a lot for different things that I really didn't want the kids to lose. And then for other things like their math notes and, any novels that we're reading, they can keep those. But for the most part, things that I wanted them to keep nice, I collected, and that seemed to work very, very well. This year, I tried something new that I learned from Marcus Luther last summer called the TQE method, thoughts, questions, and epiphanies. He got it from another teacher. I'm blanking on her name, but I will make sure. I think her name is Marissa, I think. I'm sorry if I'm getting that wrong, but I'll link it in the post. That was awesome. Marcus and other high school teachers have used TQE to really just go deep into annotations. I've used depth and complexity icons for years. So this was something that I wanted to try new and kind of integrate these things together, combine them together. Marcus has this great post I highly recommend you read it called Reading Like an Octopus. And my fifth graders ate it up. They loved the idea that I was teaching them how to read like high school students. Um, so one thing that I wrote down that I'm going to continue doing is whenever you're selling something to students, it's always good if you can tell them that other kids that are a little bit older and more mature are doing something, or you're doing something special for them that not all the other classrooms are doing. It really kind of helps build that buy-in. So TQE method. We use that at the beginning of the year for everything. In fact, I probably overuse it. I don't know if you can, but my kids were getting kind of tired of it at the end of the year. But I mean, whether we're reading short stories, poems, novels, sections of chapters, we were using TQE. And then even when I get back into book clubs, I reimagined what our book clubs would look like. I combined a couple different things with TQE and our depth and complexity icons, and I did some hexagonal thinking. All that to say is that between the dialectic notebooks and the TQE and our book clubs, those key experiences really help set the tone for the school year. And so one of the things that I'm trying to be conscious of is at the end of the year, knowing what brought joy to both me and my students, what was fun to teach and fun to learn, some structures that just brought more joyful learning experiences into my classroom. And so I'm definitely going to be doing these again. Now, were they perfect? Absolutely not. Like, as with any book club for young kids, systems can break down, group members don't do the reading. So I've got some ideas for tweaking them. I'd love to hear your thoughts as we um, go on to the school, into the summer or into next school year. One thing I think I'm going to try is I was so excited to get started with book clubs that I let every kid pick a book, and I made groups accordingly. So we had like 6 different books going simultaneously. And as our first book club, that was a bit much. I'm going to next year do a whole class novel study first. I'm going to do a whole class novel. We're going to read it together. I'm going to collect the books so the kids don't read ahead. And we're going to go and I'm going to teach them how to be in a book club with a class novel first before I let them get into independent groups. And to be honest with you, I may even do 2. We'll kind of see. It depends on the maturity level of my students. And so that I think is going to be very, very helpful. Just teaching them how to be in a book club. In the past, I've had parent volunteers come in and model with a picture book what a book club is supposed to look like live in my classroom. I've shown obviously videos of what book clubs look like, but there's something about us doing it together as a whole class that I think it's gonna help build that community and help build those structures in place. So all right, Ravi, quick question. What do your fellow teachers think about your approach, if they're even aware, and do any seriously try to adopt your methods? That's a great question, Ravi. Um, I do have it. I do have some experience of teaching kind of on an island, kind of doing my own thing. Um, and that can be isolating and that can be hard. However, I'm never shy about what I'm doing. I'm never hiding anything in my classroom. My door's always open. Um, I may not advertise how little of like a standardized curriculum I'm doing versus how much my teammates are or my colleagues are, but I'm always open about what we're doing in our classroom. I'm very excited. This upcoming school year, we're kind of our principal mixed things up. I've got some new teammates. So I'm really excited about kind of sharing more with my teammates. For the most part, in the past, Robbie, I've always been on teams where everybody kind of does their own thing, which can be nice, but also comes with some negative side effects, mainly a lack of collaboration. So I'm very excited things got mixed up a little bit and we're going to be sharing more and hopefully, doing some things together. I'm very excited specifically with the book clubs. I was sharing what I was doing with TQE and book clubs, and my teammates seemed really excited about that. So I have a feeling I'm going to be doing some grade level book clubs in the upcoming school year. So that's a great question, Robbie. Um, so yeah, I think I'm going to do the whole class novel study first. I called it the Socratic uh, the Socratic Readers Guild. I wanted them to be little guilds, which I thought was pretty cool, but it might have been a little too esoteric, kind of went over their head what a guild was. Some of my students who are big gamers kind of knew what a guild was, but I may kind of rebrand that a little bit. I don't know. But one thing that I think I'm going to try and do more of are Socratic seminars. I've always loved the idea of a Socratic seminar, but I've never had the organization to kind of be prepared for one. And I did one this last year in social studies. It was more of a debate. I called it a thrash out for our document-based question, DBQ. But I could see myself, I've been spending some time reading about Socratic seminars, and how other teachers have used them. I think I'm going to really give it a good try this year. Maybe check out some library space so that I can have an inner circle and an outer circle. But I like the idea of having those kids be more accountable to each other for their discussions instead of me just saying, go off and talk about the book, right? So that's something that I think I'm going to try um, next year with my book clubs, but just in other things too. I'm going to start small. That's one thing that I've learned early on in my career is whenever I'm trying something new, always start small, start up with one thing first, and then, make it bigger as you, go into different subject areas. So the first half of the year, was really just that. It was falling in love with teaching again, dialectic notebooks, TQ, annotations, book clubs. And then December hits, and like many of us, it gets darker outside. The days are shorter. And so December, January, even into February can be tough months for teachers. I know I was getting a little bit depressed. That's when kind of the honeymoon phase wears off with students. Behavior problems can spike. So I'm sure if you've read a lot, I link to Austin Kleon stuff probably once every month. He is a big influence on just how I operate as a teacher. He focuses mostly on creativity, but teaching, I think, is a creative art, a creative act. And so for those dark December days, I really leaned into Austin Kleon and, leaned into my bliss station. A bliss station, he explains, is just a place that you go that brings you joy. It could be your home office, where you do your work. Austin's Cleon's office, his studio is incredible. For me, my bliss station, I realized was my classroom. I don't think I ever called it that, or like a man cave, but my classroom is really what brings me a lot of joy. It's, I've had other people come into my classroom and be like, this looks like a giant, especially people who know me and say, Adrian, this is like a giant hug from you, because I'm just surrounding my students with so much of my personality and things that I like. And so that's what got me through December, was really just leaning into the joy of my classroom, even when things were getting tough. Unfortunately, this is when we start gearing up for standardized testing, if you can believe it. Most standardized testing, at least in Colorado, happens in March, April. But we start prepping for it right after Christmas, right after winter holiday. So December, January, February. And so it's unfortunate because those dark days kind of lead into some less fun activities. And so, standardized testing is a hard time for me because I don't teach to the test. Um, there's a lot of stress, heightened levels of stress. One thing I did this year that really helped was I tried to frame the test for students as just something we have to do, but that I'm not going to get bent out of shape over it. I still want them to take it seriously. I talked to my students a lot about Mr. Neibauer, teacher Mr. Neibauer, and proctor Mr. Neibauer, and how those change. I even wrote a post about, the scary teacher and what that looks like for watching my students be around a teacher who's very, very strict. So there were some things we did that just, I don't know, they were hard. They were the hardest parts of the school year were this time. We did these things called the same day, same way, where we're all teaching the same skill, the same standard, the same way every day for 10, 15, 20 days. That was not fun. And the results, honestly, were not awesome. I didn't think the kids gained any much more than if we had just done it ourselves differently. But that's going to be something that we're going to have to live with. I'm going to have to live with. So with standardized testing. Um, but one thing that I got out of that time period was just this idea of slowing down. Um, and so really just taking my time. I know that around this time period, I tend to feel flustered and rushed, like I gotta hurry up and cover curriculum through to get ready for the test. Like you got to hurry up and get through astronomy because there's going to be astronomy on this on the standardized test. You got to hurry up and get through fractions because there's going to be fractions on the test. And whenever I've done that in the past, I feel bad afterwards. I just don't feel like I do a good job. As with most things, right? When you rush, you don't do a good job with stuff. So, slowing down and just being more intentional was a way that kind of helped me get through that time up through standardized testing. And the thing about slowing down is you recognize that you can't do it all, right? Teachers are over scheduled. There are too many expectations of curriculum. It's, 2 miles wide and an inch deep. And so it forces me to make decisions about what do I want to be more intentional about? What's going to be the most important things? And so things get cut. I don't do certain things that maybe my teammates thought, do or think are important because I'm focusing on, slowing down and making sure my students really understand or are reading every day. Like for me, reading whole novels is very, very, very important to me. And you can't do that fast. You got to slow down. You got to get into books. Um, Everything these days is all about excerpts and, AI generated passages and, printouts and worksheets. And I really just want my students to slow down and get into books. And so that's something that really helps me. And then by slowing down, what I realized that I really wanted to do at the end of the year was I wanted to do more poetry. I love poetry. Um, I love reading poetry. I even try writing it when I'm feeling creative, but I love teaching poetry and I've always run out of time at the end of the year. So this year I made a conscious effort. I have two learning experiences that I've done in the past. One is a poetry slam where kids write their own poems and then perform them in a poetry slam like open mic night. And then another one is a poetry recitation where they memorize the poem and they perform that. And both of those are fantastic. In a perfect world, I would do both. This year, my students were less inclined to do the writing. So I leaned into the poetry recitation, the poetry out loud. And man, that was such a great way to end the school year. Um, I loved it so much. And again, slowing down, realizing that this is what is important to me. The end result was incredible. The videos I took of my students, I posted them, wrote a little thing about it. It was so, so cool. I had parents move to tears watching their kids perform a William Blake poem, Um, it was so cool. So I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to keep slowing down. I'm definitely going to do poetry aloud, maybe even earlier in the year. I'd love to maybe try and get it to be more of like a spelling bee kind of a thing. But anyways, that's pretty much like my year. Like those are, I feel like the highlights that I really, kind of focused on. Um, Ooh, let's look at this question here from Ravi. So follow up to challenge you. Ooh, I love being challenged, Ravi. Yes, I do eat lunch with other teachers. That's a good question. But not every single day. Sometimes some of my best reflection time happens at lunch with the quiet of the room. And oftentimes my colleagues are working during lunch. So, but yes, I do eat lunch with my colleagues. But why is there not an expectation of collaboration and learning best practices in teaching? I think this is why the profession stays stagnant. I agree with you 100%. I think there is an expectation of collaboration. I just think with personality types, it's easier said than done, Ravi. And so I think the expectation has always been that every teacher is collaborating with their colleagues, planning lessons together. Uh, but if I'm being honest, this particular dynamic of teachers that I've been a part of, it was a challenging group and we didn't always see eye to eye. And so it led to some different things. And so, yeah, I'm sure you feel bad for some students in other classes who dislike their teachers and know that your class is more fun. Yes, that does happen, but, I have a personal rule that I don't, uh, badmouth or talk poorly about any of my colleagues. We're all just doing the best that we can. Teaching is hard. And I know that, just because I have more of maybe a gregarious personality, or my classroom can appear to be more fun, I am in by no means a perfect teacher. I don't consider myself to be better than other teachers. Um, you know, uh, I really just do the best that I can. And I know that I have blind spots. I know that I have weaknesses. One of which is that I could be more structured. I could be more organized. I could be, my kids could be doing things a little bit differently in a more structured environment than my teammates. But I just think we all just try and do our best. Yeah. So good question, Ravi. But yeah, so as I'm reflecting on my year, I'm just kind of thinking about just a couple highlights, some things that jump out. One is that starting the year with an intention, a positive intention, really helped me, especially coming off of some pretty cynical years where I had some really challenging students and some very challenging team dynamics. Starting off the year with a positive intention, I think was really helpful. So I'm going to do that again. And then um, picking and choosing the learning experiences that I know bring me joy. And so at the end of the year, I usually go through my plan book, and I make a positives and a negatives column, and I just kind of do an end of year kind of audit, if you will. And I look at, like, what were some of the things that are on the positive side that just were just so much fun to teach and so much fun to learn. Then what are the things that I have to do that were not as much fun? And then I look at my list, and I've got my positives and my negatives, and I'm thinking, okay, well, some of the things I can't change. I can't change standardized testing. I can't change stressful, things in the building or personality types of colleagues. But there might be a learning experience that I did that I could have tweaked, and maybe it would have been more positive. And so, like, for example, the book clubs, that was kind of in the middle. Like, it started off great, and then it kind of uh, declined. And so I think making a couple tweaks will put that on the positive side. And so that's just one way that I reflect at the end of the year. It's pretty simple. Just a positive is it positives and negatives, and try and figure out ways that I can take some of those negative ones and tweak them and make them more positive. Because I find that the more that I teach the stuff that I love, the more engaged I am and the more sustainable it's going to be. There's always going to be things that I have to do, things that I don't want to do, but I try and surround myself with as many of the things that I want to do, for my students. So, yeah. All right, let's get to some questions. Ravi's got some good questions coming in. And so let's just go right into that. So, if teachers are allowing their personalities to dictate their teaching, I disagree that all teachers are doing the best that they can. Um, yeah, you know what? That's a really interesting. I mean, I do see where you're coming from. I think that we want to be our whole authentic selves as teachers, and our personalities are part of that. Some personalities are more more somber or strict or earnest than others, but I don't think that necessarily means that they're trying any less to do their best. I think what what happens with teaching and public education, Pravi, is that um, public education can be a very dehumanizing environment. And, the expectations on teachers can be dehumanizing, demoralizing. And what happens is those things override our personality. And so people who maybe go in and they're super, bright eyed and ready to start new things, they slowly, get the reality of, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't teach that novel. You can't do this. And it slowly starts to break them down a little bit. So I don't know if it means that they're not trying their hardest. I think we're all trying to do the best we can in a very challenging, almost impossible system. Um, but then to your next point, teaching then becomes more subjective. Um, I've experienced a lot of substitutes, and these are my observations. I agree. I think teaching is a very personal thing. And whenever we try and standardize teaching and learning, it depersonalizes it, which, right, from an administrator's point of view, that makes sense. I want every classroom to have the exact same experience. Okay. Obviously, they want everyone to have the same positive experiences. But teaching, like, we're not teaching machines. And if you want more, Robbie, I highly recommend you read this book, because John Warner talks about that. We're not teaching machines. We put our heart and souls into what we do, and yeah, it makes it so that teaching is subjective, and I think that's a good thing. it doesn't mean that we want wildly different, learning experiences. We all want our kids to be, positively growing and having positive schooling experiences. But it would be a disservice to our students if we had to like not be ourselves so that we could be the same as everybody else. So hey, I appreciate the challenging questions, Ravi. Um, and to your point about the summer, going into the summer, I don't know if any of you guys have kids. I've got three teenagers. One's going off. He's 18. He's going off to boot camp, Marine boot camp here in a month. And so Ravi asked, because he's got kids, how do you get kids like self-directed learning? Summer screen time is a real problem, and believe me, I know. Um, One thing that I've done both as a parent and as a teacher is I really try and encourage rabbit holes. Um, I try and give my kid, find out whatever it is that they're interested in, whether it's my students or my own kids, and have them like summer's a time that you can like spend time getting good at something, or exploring something to see if you really like it. So if your child expresses an interest in, I don't know, playing the piano. Obviously, we can't all afford to give our children piano lessons, but maybe there's a way that you could, check out from the public library a keyboard and then just let them play around with it and spend some time, like obviously there's going to be some YouTube type thing, some screen time, but just kind of exploring it or reading about it. Um, I make weekly trips to the library. We've been doing that as a family for years. And so my kids know that we're rounding up books for the library. Reading is going to be a big part of our summer vacation. I also just try and keep my kids really, really busy. But to your point, Ravi, I think you said you've got like a 14-year-old and I think someone older. Like the teen years, it's hard to keep kids busy because they get very sucked into their phones and they get sucked into just being kind of like, "Ugh," you know. So we call it forced family fun, baby. We're gonna go to the pool as a family. No questions asked. We're going to go on a hike. No questions asked. Last week, we took our kids to the zoo. You should have seen my oldest one just being dragged to the zoo. I don't want to go. We went to the zoo. It never is like it never backfires. They may hate going, but once we're there and we have a good time, we come back and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was great. What was your favorite part of the zoo? Right. I don't think there's field trips that, you outgrow. I think last summer, maybe 2 summers ago, I wrote about my favorite field trips. I'll link that in the post as well. Um, Try and find like lots of fun, local, and hopefully free things you can do with your kids, whether they're state fairs, going to the library, doing a summer library reading program, going to the zoo, going to a local pool. If you've got bodies of water near you, like a reservoir, something, just getting outside. Um, and then if nothing else, just like going for walks. That's just one way that we, in our family try and limit screen time. Um, I can be hypocritical because I'm on my phone quite a bit and I'm on my computer quite a bit. Because for me, what I love doing is reading and writing, and I do that. I read books, physical books, but I'm typing on my computer. So again, just trying to make a balance. Like we're gonna have 2 hours, 3 hours of some family screen time where Dad's gonna go and do some writing, or you know you're gonna go play some games or whatever. But I would love to say that I've won that battle with my kids. I haven't. My middle son does quite a bit of stuff on his Xbox during the summer. So it's definitely something that we keep trying to go back and forth on. But yeah, great question, Ravi. Actually, great questions all the way around. So yeah, that's kind of my observations from the school year going into this summer. I'm really looking forward to some time to rest and relax. I've got a stack of books that I want to read. Obviously, there's going to be way too many books to read. Um, Next school year, we're going to be reading this as a building. It's called Revolutionary School Culture by Amin Ra. Um, this looks great. It's an awesome video that goes along with it where he goes into some schools and talks about school culture. So this is a very quick read. Um, you know, we're going to be doing that as a school, so I'm going to probably read that over the summer. And then I just picked up Robert McFarlane's book, Is a River Alive? I never read Underworld or Understory, or the one where he goes into the caves. So I think I may try and read that one first. But man, I just was flipping through this, and like his prose is gorgeous. So I'm excited to read that. but I got to get through Middlemarch first. So for right now, I'm just going to be reading Middlemarch and relaxing and trying to get outside and have a good time. So yeah, that's my school year, and that's what I've got planned for the summer. So, if there's no other questions, guys and gals, thank you so much. I almost said boys and girls. Thank you, boys and girls, for coming and just hanging out with me for just 30 minutes, just to chat about the school year. I may do another one of these over the summer just to kind of check in and see what everybody's doing. I'll make sure if I do, I'll schedule it so you guys have advance warning. But have a great summer. If you're already on summer break, please share what you're doing, whether it's in the chat or comments to this post. Share what you're doing for summer to relax and decompress. If you're not on summer break, hang in there. It's got to be around the corner. What is it, June 11th? It's got to be soon. So hang in there, and I'll catch you guys on the other side. See you guys.